been a while. These guys have been fermenting for quite some time. They kind of stopped, pretty stable. So I'm going to blend these down. This is just straight red habaneros. There's no fruit or other vegetables in there. I do have some fermenting right now that I set up same size with a few of these cherry tomatoes blended in, a couple other regular tomatoes blended into the pepper ferment to help it ferment better. These fermented really slow, and you could probably let them sit for another 6 months. I don't think it would change where they're at fermentation wise. So I'm going to go ahead and blend them down. Now these are tomatoes out of my garden that I put in here, nothing but tomatoes with no water whatsoever in it. It eventually separated up to almost about half, just fluid. So it was an interesting ferment, but they're ready to blend down too. They've stopped fermenting, so blend those down, and we'll set the spices up in this to get the flavor profile and then add the heat to the level we want. I'm going to start some new tomato ferments. I've got a bunch of the cherry tomatoes that are really sweet, make a good flavor into the ferment. And I picked up a bunch of aromas that I've blistered the skin. I'm going to peel the skin, and then I've got a bowl of tomatoes from the garden that I've blistered the skin. I'm going to peel those. We'll get those into ferments. I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse this jar or just put them all in the half gallons, but either way, I'm going to put them in a burp type ferment because it seems like the gas bubble on them tends to get overwhelmed by the amount of fermentation. It kind of gets really quick and hard. And, so I think the burp works just as well. But I put a drip pan underneath because when you do burp it will drip. So anyway, I'm going to get that going, and I'll bring you up to speed after I get a few things done. Okay, made some progress. These are the fermented tomatoes and spiced and blended, ready to add some of the red habaneros that are blended down and smoothed out. Although these are just done in a general blender, the red habaneros, I had a secondary process where I blended them down with a little tighter blade that makes it smoother. Sometimes if you need to, you can strain them with the seeds to get that kind of stuff out if you want. But I found that for this particular sauce, I don't put a dripper in the bottle. I just leave the bottle top unhindered, and it flows out just fine. So, and then the tomatoes, I ended up blending them down. This is the first time I blended the tomatoes before the ferment. Just not real hard blend, but just enough to chop them up and do like a mash type ferment for the tomatoes. Now I did that with the peppers. That worked really well for spatial allocation in the jars, rather than slicing, trying to press things down, and you end up with more water than you do peppers. And so this was mostly peppers. I mean, there's hardly anything. Now for these 2 jars, there's 2 tablespoons of salt in each one. So I add that in as I was doing the blend. I did put a breather on there because I'm going to be out of town, and I don't want my wife having to worry about trying to burp them. So hopefully they'll be okay with those breathers, and they'll be fine by the time I get back. I can check on them. But I don't know, we got some real nice color with this red habanero. I really like this pepper. The garden has grown a lot of them. I've literally got about 2 gallons of blended down habaneros in play here, so maybe even a little over. Let's see. Yeah, maybe a little over 2 gallons. So, and there's still some growing. I'll probably pick up tomorrow. They're starting to ripen to orange rather than red this time of year. I think the shorter days, I don't know how that affects it, but I'm not getting as many red. I'm getting more orange ripened ones. So anyway, it makes a good blend. I'll go ahead and leave a live video when I blend these, and we'll see what I do there. So usually it's fill this type of blender up to 3/4 of the way or something like that, and add a tablespoon or 2 of this, taste it and see where it's at, and just kind of do some test cases to see where you want it for heat. Now for me, I like it a little hotter, but for others I keep it a little milder. But the flavor profile that you're looking for, I make with the tomatoes. So I've tasted the tomato blend. These have a little different flavor profile. It's more of an Italian style blend into the tomatoes with some Italian style herbs and some sweet basil and oregano. and things like that. Now there is one thing I haven't added here because I didn't have enough to put it in. I will use a dried cilantro, and I'll put that in when I blend it down in this. But I didn't have enough to put it into these two big ones, so I've got to dry some more. I don't like to put it in fresh. I want it dried first, and I need to dry some more. So anyway, we'll blend that in a minute and see how it goes. Okay, one thing I need to emphasize, can't emphasize this enough, to make sure that everything that touches what you're doing has been sterilized.
Yeah, it's a bit careful. Let me see.
You did. You killed that job.